This isn't the Wild West you saw in movies. This is the version they didn't want you to know. You're standing in the middle of nowhere, sunburned, thirsty, and surrounded by a silence that feels practiced. The wind doesn't howl here, it whispers. Like it's afraid someone, or something, might overhear. Dust clings to your boots like regret. And the land ahead rolls out in amber waves, as if trying to bury its own secrets beneath layers of scorched earth. And then you see it. A wooden sign, half buried, the letters carved in shaky, almost pleading script. Don't dig. Behind it, mounds. Hundreds of them, stretching into the haze like the spine of a giant rattlesnake. No markers, no flowers, just quiet little scars in the ground, as if the land itself tried to heal over the bodies too quickly. You found it, the graveyard of cowboys no one talks about. And trust me, you probably won't survive this story. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You take your first step past the sign, and the air thickens, not like humidity, no, like memory. Like the very atoms here remember what happened, and they're not happy to see you. There's no official record of this graveyard, no town map, no church list, no known cemetery plot, yet every old-timer within a 100-mile radius speaks of it in hushed tones. If at all, not just because of what's buried here, but because of what isn't. The first rumors date back to the 1850s, before railroads carved paths through the desert and before telegram lines gave voices to the void. Cowboys whispered of a no-mark hill, where dying men rode to disappear. Not for burial, not for peace, but because something in them knew that was where they belonged, as if the ground had called them back. Here's the part they skip in your documentaries. Back then, cattle drives weren't just about dusty trails and campfire beans. Some of those longhorn herds moved through territory that had never been surveyed. Unnamed canyons, rivers that vanished into sinkholes. One drive in 1861, led by a man known only as Bishop, lost 17 men in a single night. No shootout, no stampede, just gone. Their horses returned, but the men didn't. A week later, their saddlebags were found half buried here, alongside boots still laced. Historians still argue whether this graveyard is a single location or a migrating phenomenon. One theory suggests it moves through time like a shadow under different skies. Others claim it's been bulldozed over, rediscovered, and silenced again, each time with fewer people willing to ask questions. But what's real, what you can feel right now, is the dread that coats your skin like sweat. You glance down and notice something odd. The soil here is unnaturally soft, spongy, like it's breathing under you. And every few steps, you swear you see old boot tips peeking out from beneath the dust, just enough to make you look twice. Mainstream history? They'll tell you the cowboy era was about exploration, justice, manifest destiny. But those same explorers often stumbled into lands they never understood. Take the Paiute legends, oral histories passed down from tribes that never put faith in written maps. They spoke of the fields that do not forget, where every footstep carried weight. It wasn't about ghosts. It was about gravity, psychic gravity. Places heavy with unfinished endings. Now, you might be thinking this is just a forgotten military burial ground. Sure, that would explain the anonymity, right? Except every button, boot, and bullet casing ever pulled from this soil tells a different story. The styles don't match any known regiment. One archaeologist, Elaine Wexler, cataloged over 40 unique revolver calibers from a single dig. Some predate the Colt factory by a decade. Others shouldn't exist at all. And then there are the bodies, or rather, the lack of them. For every 10 graves dug here, only 2 yield remains. And of those 2, one almost always has teeth missing. replaced by tiny carved coins made of bone. Who carves bone coins? And more importantly, why bury them in place of molars? You squat beside one of the more recent graves. Someone's been here. There's a whiskey bottle, cracked, with just a finger of amber left inside. An offering? Maybe. Or maybe someone was trying to forget they came here at all. Either way, the grave it rests on is shallow, dug maybe a month ago. The sand hasn't settled. You run your fingers along the edge. It's damp. From somewhere behind you, a whistle. Low, almost teasing. You turn. Nothing. Just the wind curling between the stones. You're alone, right? There's a ridge nearby, the perfect place to scan the area. You climb it slowly, each step releasing an unsettling crunch from underfoot. When you reach the top, the sun finally dips beneath the horizon, and suddenly, the graveyard doubles in size. You realize half the mounds were hidden by shadows. A second graveyard behind the first. Or perhaps just a deeper layer of the same memory. You look down at your feet, and there, carved into a rock, so faint you nearly miss it, you're standing where he fell. No name, no date, just that, and in this place, that somehow feels like enough. You descend the ridge slowly, like the ground might lurch if you move too fast. There's no wind anymore, just heat, and it's not the sun doing the cooking. It's something older, deeper, the kind of warmth that seeps from under the earth, like breath held too long. You find your footing beside a cracked stone slab, its edge worn smooth by time or touch. There's a horseshoe resting on top, broken clean in half. That's when you remember the story. The sheriff from Sage Hollow. The man who disappeared twice. His name was Thomas Harland, and in 1872, he was the kind of sheriff dime novels loved to exaggerate. 6 feet tall, mustache like it had its own opinions, fast draw, iron will, polite to grandmas, and deadly to outlaws. Sage Hollow wasn't a big town, but it had problems, mostly the kind that rode in under moonlight and left in coffins. One afternoon, Harland rode out alone, following reports of cattle mutilations near Devil's Elbow, a crooked canyon 5 miles south of here. He never came back. Not that night. Not the next. Not for 12 whole days. Then, just when the town had finished his eulogy and cleaned out his desk, he walked back in. Same hat, same boots, only his shirt was torn and covered in red sand. He didn't remember where he'd been. Couldn't even recall his own name at first. Just kept muttering a phrase. He's still counting. He's still counting. They thought it was heat stroke. He'd been known to skip water in favor of bourbon. But something about his eyes bothered folks. They looked too calm, too empty, like someone had turned the lights off inside and forgot to flip them back on. Historians still argue whether this event was real or some mass hallucination, maybe caused by ergot bread, bad liquor, or a folk legend twisted through years of storytelling. But town records confirm it. Harland returned, resumed duty, and within a week, gunned down 3 men who never drew on him. Clean kills. No hesitation, each bullet through the heart. Then, one night during a lightning storm, Harland vanished again, this time from inside the jailhouse. The cell door was still locked, his rifle still hanging on the wall, his boots still standing under his desk. But Harland? Gone. All that remained was a single playing card. The Jack of Spades, burned at the edges. The same card found wedged in the collar of an unknown body discovered weeks later, right here. In this graveyard, you stop walking, because now, you're noticing something else. There's a horseshoe nailed to a nearby wooden post, just like the one on Harland's grave in Sage Hollow. And beneath it, scratched in clumsy knife marks, are the initials TH. You brush away the dust. There's more. A date. 1881? But Harland disappeared in 1872. You try to do the math, but the numbers slip away. Like soap in water. Something here resists logic. That's the thing about this place. Time doesn't move in straight lines. It loops, folds, splits like cracked leather in the sun. Some say that's why the dead here don't stay put. They're stuck mid-story, mid-breath, mid-trigger pull, waiting for an ending that won't come. You shift your gaze and spot another anomaly, a boot. Just one, buried halfway in the sand. Toes pointing up like whoever wore it got sucked straight down. You dig around it gently. And there, etched into the worn leather, is a nameplate. Sheriff Harland, Sage Hollow. That's impossible. His grave is 200 miles east. Unless it's not a grave. Unless it's just a placeholder. And this is where he really rests. Or, waits. A sudden flicker of movement to your left. Like a figure ducking behind a cairn. You freeze. Listen. Nothing. Your own heartbeat sounds like gunfire now. Echoing too loudly in this suffocating silence. You swallow hard and back away. Stepping lightly. Heel first. Like you're trying not to wake something. There's a story that never made it into the papers. Just local whispers passed from bar to bar. They say the second time Harland disappeared, he didn't go quietly. That night, 3 people claimed to hear him shouting from underground. Not like a man buried alive, but like someone shouting up from somewhere far deeper. Calling to be pulled back. And when no one came, he changed. Some accounts claim sightings of a tall figure wandering ghost towns at dusk. Wearing a sheriff's star blackened with soot. No face, no voice. Just that card, Jack of Spades, tucked behind his collar. A few even swear he walks this graveyard when the moon is lowest. Checking the markers, counting them. Why? Because he's still looking for someone. Or something. Maybe himself. You reach for the broken horseshoe again. But it's gone. Just vanished. Like Harland. And in its place? A single playing card. Jack of Spades. Burned at the edges. You keep the card in your palm a little too long. It's warm. Not from the sun, but from something else. Like it was freshly pulled from a chest pocket that no longer exists. You flip it over once more just to be sure. Jack of Spades. Burn-marked edges. And faint smudges that could be fingerprints or ash. You slip it into your jacket. Which you'll later regret. Ahead, the ground rises slightly. Just enough to form a low ridge. At the crest stands a crooked iron gate leaning against nothing. No fence. No posts. Just a gate. Rusted. Open. And very much in the way. You walk through it because. What else do you do? And immediately the air feels heavier. Like you're stepping into a memory that doesn't belong to you. And that's when you see it. The other Boot Hill. Everyone's heard of Dodge City's Boot Hill. The cowboys' cemetery. Final resting place for drunks, gamblers, and gunslingers who ran out of luck or bullets. Whichever came first. But this is its twisted cousin. The one that doesn't show up on postcards. Same style. Crude wood crosses. Stony mounds. A boot here. A revolver there. But look closer and things start to fall apart. For one, every cross here tilts in the same direction, northeast. Like they're all being pulled toward something just over the horizon. For another, none of the graves have names. Just numbers. Roman numerals carved into bone. Not wood, not stone. Bone. You crouch beside one and run your fingers over the surface. Femur. Human. Probably. Someone's shin used as a headstone. Neatly chiseled. XCVII. That's 98. 100 yards down. Another. XCVII. Same number. Another one. And another. You count 11 marked 98 before you stop. Either someone forgot how numbers work, or someone really didn't want us to forget whoever, or whatever, was buried here. Mainstream records have no mention of this. But an 1874 edition of the Silver Spur Ledger includes a sidebar note from a traveling preacher. Father Allen Drew, who wrote, "The valley east of Boone Mesa has graves without names. Only signs. My congregation grew nervous the longer we camped nearby. One child claimed to hear counting beneath the ground. Sounds like superstition, until you realize you're now hearing a sound too. A soft tapping. Rhythmic. Like bones clicking together far underground. You shake it off and keep moving. Deeper into this unsanctioned Boot Hill. You pass by a row of graves that seem wrong. Too symmetrical. Each mound exactly the same size. Same spacing. Same tilt. At the foot of every one, a single boot, always the left. Never the right. You hesitate. Then glance behind you. There are more boots now. You didn't see them before. But there they are. Quiet little leather warnings. Half sunken and facing the same direction, northeast. Always northeast. Historians still argue whether this site was ever truly a graveyard at all. Said one retired museum curator in a lost 1938 interview. I think it was something else. A marker. A boundary. Like a scar across the desert saying, "Don't go past here unless you're ready to disappear." And yet here you are. Still walking. Still counting. You reach the end of the row and find something new. A grave outlined with salt. Not just sprinkled, but poured. Carefully. As if someone believed that would keep something in. In the center, a broken Colt .36 Navy revolver. Barrel split in half. There's no marker. No number. Just an open book. Its pages mostly rotted. One line remains. Here lies the last man who thought this was just a story. You'd laugh. But your mouth is dry. Too dry. So you turn to leave, and you freeze. Because now the crosses don't just tilt northeast. They all face you. Not physically. No, they haven't moved. But the angles, they've shifted. All of them. It's as if the entire graveyard just leaned forward. You blink. Once. They don't move again. But the message is clear. You're being watched. And suddenly, the idea of this being Boot Hill's twisted cousin feels off. Boot Hill was a place you got put in. This place? This is where you went voluntarily, when your story didn't fit the town's version of history. When your death was inconvenient, or too strange, or too early, or too late, you start walking faster. The card in your pocket burns again. And from somewhere off in the northeast distance, where all those crosses lean, you hear something roll across the sand. Something that sounds a lot like bootsteps. You don't run. Not yet. Because in places like this, running only makes the ground remember you faster. So instead, you walk. Steady. Careful. Like you belong here. Like you're one of them. And in the corner of your vision, you catch a flicker. Like candlelight behind warped glass. It draws you down a narrow slope between mounds, where an ancient foundation lies cracked and crumbling beneath your boots. A saloon, or what's left of it. The wood has rotted, warped by time and heat. But the bones of the building remain. Half a staircase, a splintered bar, saloon doors still hanging by one hinge, creaking ever so slightly in a wind that doesn't touch anything else. Welcome to La Llorona's taproom, the saloon that only served the dead. That's not a ghost story. That's what the locals actually called it. Carved right into the wood beam overhead. La Llorona's, we pour, till you fade. Now, you've heard versions of this tale. The crying woman, the desert widow. But this place, this was different. The building appears on at least 3 separate trail maps between 1860 and 1900, then vanishes without explanation. No burn marks, no mining collapse, just gone, until it shows up again. Always during a blood moon. That's what makes this place different from ghost stories. This is a pattern, a cycle. Every 19 years, someone finds the saloon again. Not as ruins, but as new. Candles lit, mirror polished, piano playing itself, and patrons inside, only they're wrong. Dressed like cowboys, hats low, boots dusty, but too still, too perfect, like someone remembering how cowboys should look, but not how they moved. Witnesses, usually trappers, miners, or outlaws on the run, describe the same thing. The room full of people who didn't blink. The piano played a song I couldn't name. And when I stepped in, no one looked at me. Because they all already knew me. Historians still argue whether this is folklore, or some elaborate frontier myth designed to warn travelers away from sacred land. But tell that to Jedediah Cole, a well-known con man who staggered into town in 1877. babbling about whiskey that tasted like memory. Said he lost 3 days. Woke up with a playing card in his pocket. And the word, "serve," carved into the sole of his boot. You step over the warped floorboards. Careful not to fall through. The bar's still there, charred, but intact. Behind it, empty bottles arranged in careful rows. Only they're not dusty, not spider-webbed. These bottles look fresh. And inside each one, something floats. Not liquor, not quite, more like amber fluid suspending small objects. Teeth, coins, fingers. One has what looks like a wedding ring with skin still attached. You back away from the bar instinctively and glance at the swinging doors. Only they're not swinging anymore. They've stopped, mid-motion, frozen, and the creaking has turned into something else. A whisper. It's coming from upstairs. You should leave, but you won't, because now you have to know. You follow the sound, each step on the staircase sinking a little deeper than it should. At the top, there's a hallway with 4 doors. 3 are open and empty. The 4th is closed. You knock. The whispering stops. You open it. The room is simple. A bed, a mirror, a broken lantern, but it's what's written on the walls that makes your breath catch. Names. Hundreds of names. Carved, scratched, inked, burned. Some are in English, others in Spanish, a few in languages you don't recognize. But they all have one thing in common: they're yours. Your full name, written 27 different times. In 27 different styles. One with your middle name spelled wrong. One with a nickname you haven't used since high school. One in your handwriting. One of them is fresh. You reach out and touch it. The wood beneath your finger pulses. Ever so slightly. Warm, like skin. You take a step back and something catches your eye. The mirror. You're in it, but you're not. You're older, or younger, or something else. Same face, different eyes. And behind you in the mirror, patrons from the bar, staring through the reflection, watching. You turn around. No one's there, but the card in your pocket is warm again. You pull it out. Jack of spades. Only now the edges aren't just burned. They're bleeding. A drop hits the floor. The piano downstairs begins to play. You don't remember leaving the saloon. You don't remember walking back outside. But somehow you're standing in front of the building again. Only now the sign's changed. Closed for good. He's counting. You don't know who he is. But you start walking again anyway. Because you feel like if you stay still for too long, you'll hear the song again, and this time it won't stop. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a thought begins to form. Not yours. You've already been here before. The desert doesn't cool at night here. No, it thickens, like syrup left too long in a cracked bottle. The air grows heavy, but not with heat, with presence. Every grain of sand crunching beneath your boots feels like it's been waiting to be stepped on again. Because maybe it has. You keep your eyes forward. But the feeling of being watched never fades. Especially now. They call them the riders without eyes. You've heard whispers of them. Tall figures on horseback, cloaked in dust and silence. First reported in 1865. Just after the war, miners in Arizona Territory spoke of hollow-headed horsemen roaming canyon passes. Deserters, maybe, or ghosts, or something else entirely. Here, though, at the edge of this graveyard, they aren't a story. They're real. You crest a ridge where the ground splits into a forked path, one leading toward a ravine, the other curling around a dry creek bed. Both are wrong, but the one on the left has tracks. Not boot prints, hoof prints. They look recent, sun-baked, yes, but not wind-worn, and the spacing is off. Horses don't walk like this. Not so straight, not so precise. 4 hoof prints, always in pairs, always exactly 18 inches apart. Like some cursed metronome is keeping time. You follow. Because of course you do. And just as the moon begins its slow drag across the sky, you see the first one. A silhouette against the horizon. Sitting high in the saddle. Wide-brimmed hat. Long duster coat. Legs bent just enough to suggest presence, but there's something wrong with the face. Because there is no face. No eyes. No mouth. Just flat skin stretched too tight over bone. You blink. He's gone. You tell yourself it was a mirage. Desert heat and frayed nerves. But then the hoofbeats start. Slow. Rhythmic. Behind you. Then ahead of you. Then all around. Riders. Half glimpsed in the corners of your vision. Never moving. Never speaking. Watching. There's a journal entry from a frontier doctor, Drive. Miriam Hollis. 1879. Who described a similar sighting while traveling alone near the Pecos River. They stood upon the ridgeline. 6 deep. I saw their eyes before I realized they had none. And still, I felt watched, deeply. Intimately. As if they knew every sickness I'd hidden from my patients. Historians still argue whether this passage is metaphor, hallucination, or just poor translation, but her journal ends 3 pages later with one final scrawled phrase. They counted me. You walk faster now. The card in your pocket pulses. Not just warm now, but rhythmic. Like a second heartbeat, syncing with your own, and every time you touch it, that low whisper returns. Half syllables. Unfinished words. Echoes from somewhere else. And still the hoofbeats follow. Then, dead silence. You stop. The air changes. No wind. No sound. No heartbeat. You've stepped into a clearing. Ringed with stones so smooth they look melted. At the center stands a monument of sorts. A wooden pole crowned with something too faded to identify. Maybe a flag once. Or a tattered coat. Tied around it are leather straps, old gun belts. Laced together like a noose. One still has a name etched into the leather. You lean closer. Your name. And not just once. There it is again. And again. Your name repeated 37 times in different handwritings. Some neat. Some scratched. One even in cursive. An old schoolteacher's script. Maybe. You back away slowly. And that's when the writers return. Not 1, not 6, dozens, all circling the clearing, silent, eyeless, one with a broken jaw hanging too low, another whose hands dangled too long at the reins, all of them still, watching. You reach for your revolver. It isn't there. You never brought one. You remember that now, because it wouldn't have helped anyway. You try to speak, maybe to ask who they are, what they want, but your throat closes. Dry as stone. Then, one rider lifts a hand and points. Not at you. At the pole. You follow the finger, and now the flag at the top is visible. Fluttering weakly. Not a flag. A face. Your face. Stitched in cloth. Eyes crossed out in black thread. And then, finally, one of them speaks. A voice like rope tightening. You're not done yet. And the hoofbeats return. This time fading into the dark, not retreating. Just resetting. Waiting for the next loop. You don't run. You just walk. Slowly. Mouth dry. Eyes wide. Wondering when exactly your name was sewn into that cloth. And if it was your hand that did the stitching. You leave the clearing with legs that barely feel like yours anymore. Each step feels chosen for you, by old bones and older rules. The desert isn't guiding you now. It's funneling you. Like a drain. Downward. Inward. Toward the center of something ancient. Because this graveyard isn't a circle. It's a spiral. And you're already inside it. As the path narrows, a figure comes into view. Not a rider. A man. Kneeling beside a rock. Scribbling in a leather-bound notebook so worn it looks part of the landscape. His hat is pulled low. The brim casting deep shadows over his face. He doesn't react as you approach. Not even when your boots scrape the gravel just feet away. You clear your throat. He keeps writing. Finally, you ask, "What are you doing out here?" He stops, closes the book, looks up with eyes like glass marbles, milky and too still. "I'm keeping count," he says. Tallyman's work never ends. That's when you realize what you're looking at. The tallyman of El Desierto. His name isn't known. Never was. Appears in 5 separate oral histories. None matching exactly. One version calls him a census agent. Another. A preacher who lost his flock to cholera. The strangest claims he wasn't born, but written into existence by a dying gambler who couldn't remember his own children's names. Whatever the truth, he keeps the list. He opens the notebook, shows you the pages. Thousands of names, some scratched, some burned in, some written in what looks alarmingly like dried blood. And next to each name, a symbol, a circle, a cross, or a slash. You scan the pages, not sure what you're hoping to find. Then, you do. Your name, right there. Next to it, a circle, unclosed. What does that mean, you ask? He closes the book softly. It means you're not buried yet. The wind picks up for a moment, dry and hot, like a sigh from a furnace. The tallyman pulls a pencil stub from behind his ear and continues writing without another word. You linger, unsure, but he doesn't look up again. And so you move on. Because part of you knows the longer you stand still, the more likely that circle will close. About 20 paces ahead, you find an outcropping of shale with a strange configuration of stones arranged around it, almost ceremonial. You bend to inspect them. They're bones. Clean, white, dry as parchment, arranged in spirals, each spiral larger than the last, stretching outward like ripples from a thrown stone. And at the center of each, a coin, all different, all carved from the same pale material. You recognize it immediately. Bone coins. Historians still argue whether bone coins were real currency or just symbolic. Some claim it was a post-mortem practice among isolated frontier towns, a way of paying the dead for their silence. Others suggest darker things, that certain towns paid someone to take their dead away. No graves, no funerals, just disappearance, traded for quiet. You pick up a coin. It's warm, smooth. The image etched into it is strange, a wheel, with 7 spokes, but you swear the image shifts when you look at it too long. Like it's watching you back. And then the whisper returns. Faint, repeating. He's still counting. He's still counting. He's still counting. It's not the tallyman. It's coming from the ground. You press your palm to the dirt. It moves. Just slightly. A breath. A heartbeat. You don't scream. But you do stand up quickly and toss the coin back. That seems to help. Behind you now, the tallyman closes his notebook again. You dropped something. He calls without looking. You pat your pockets. Everything's there. Or is it? You reach for the jack of spades. Gone. In its place is a different card. A blank one. Completely white. Except for a smudge of red in the center. Not ink. Not paint. You look up. The tallyman is gone. Only a trail of small, neat footprints remains, disappearing into dust. You stand there a while, listening, waiting, and finally, something deep underground exhales, as if disappointed you're still here. The sand shifts under your boots like something waking up. Not fast, not loud, just subtly wrong, like a whisper in a room that should be empty. You keep walking, though everything in your body wants to turn back. But what would that even mean now? Back isn't where you left it. Back has been counted. Back has your name on a ledger you never signed. You crest a ridge and stop cold. Dozens of them. Crows. Silent. Still. Perched across the crooked fence posts like feathered jurors. You expect them to scatter, but they don't move. Not a wing. Not a blink. Just quiet black shapes watching you with unsettling stillness. And here's the thing. They're too symmetrical. Exactly 4 crows per post. One on each corner of the wooden markers. 8 posts in view. 32 birds. All staring straight ahead. You whisper, "What are you looking at?" And one of them, just one, tilts its head. Then, in a broken rasp, "Uno mas." One more. You freeze. Crows don't speak, not even in ghost stories. But this one did, and it wasn't the garbled mimicry of a parrot, it was intentional. Ragged, Spanish, clear, and then another joins in. Then a third, all in mismatched tongues. Eins mehr, encore un, o din esse. All saying the same thing. One more. They aren't crows. They're watchers. Folklore from the Mexican frontier tells of Los Cuervos del Desierto, crows that didn't eat carrion but counted it. Believed to be spirits of men who died unburied. Condemned to remain feathered and voiceless, unless someone disturbed the graves they watched. You must have stepped into their circle. You step back slowly, and that's when you see it. A grave, fresh, soil still loose, and in the middle, standing upright like a sundial, a mirror. About 2 feet tall, framed in cracked silver. Not antique, modern. Too modern. You move closer, look down. Your reflection looks back. Only it doesn't move with you. It's off, delayed by half a second. Then it smiles. You're not smiling. The reflection lifts its hand, holds up a playing card. Jack of spades. Burned edges. Bleeding corners. You step away quickly, and the crows begin to shift. Not flying, not fluttering, just turning, like compass needles, all now pointing their beaks northeast. Of course, always northeast. You follow the beaks, not because you want to, but because now the mirror's not just reflecting. It's recording. You feel it, deep down, like it's etching your story into glass. You move. The crows follow. You pass a collapsed fence and stumble into a clearing of small stones. Each one is etched with what looks like music notes, tiny carved symbols. Sharp and angular. And in the center, a single dead tree. Completely white, no bark, no leaves, just branches like brittle fingers pointing in every direction. At the base of the tree is a noose, coiled neatly, unused, and beside it, nailed into the trunk, a single phrase. This wasn't yours. No explanation, no context, but something in your chest aches when you read it, like remembering a dream you were never supposed to wake up from. One of the crows lands on your shoulder. Not heavy, not aggressive, just there. It leans close to your ear. And in that same dry, scraped voice, you owe us a story. You try to speak, nothing comes out. Because maybe they're right. Maybe you do owe one. And maybe this whole place, the graves, the writers, the saloon, the tallyman, the spiral, isn't just death. Maybe it's record keeping. And you've been walking through the margins of a book you didn't know you were in. You whisper, I don't remember writing it. A dozen crows answer at once. But you did. Then they lift off, suddenly, violently, into the sky, scattering like smoke across the stars. And you are left standing at the base of the white tree. The noose still coiled. Waiting. For what? You're not yet sure. But the mirror's smile still lingers in the back of your mind. You don't remember deciding to walk again. But your legs are moving. Automatically. As if some old agreement deep in your bones is fulfilling its final clause. The white tree fades behind you. The sky bruises into a sickly purple. Neither day nor night. And the air? It's quiet, too quiet. Then you hear it. A shuff-shuff sound. Repetitive. Deliberate. Digging. You follow the sound past brittle grass and a line of grave markers. Each one more twisted than the last. One is a melted lantern. One is a wedding shoe nailed to a plank. Another is just a child's drawing burned into bark. A man with no eyes. Standing next to a box in the dirt. The digging sound gets louder. And then you see it. A hole. Coffin-sized. Fresh. Damp. Still being dug. Only, no one's digging it. The soil moves on its own, like breath. Or hunger. Every few seconds, another scoop of earth slides away. Though there's no shovel. No hands. Just the land, working patiently. Almost politely. You crouch and peer into the grave. It's about 4 feet deep so far. And what's inside makes your stomach twitch. Not a coffin. Not a skeleton. A mirror. Again. Lying flat at the bottom. Reflecting not the sky, but a ceiling. An old one. Water-stained and rotted. The kind you'd see in a cellar or a crypt. The kind that doesn't belong here. Historians still argue whether the phenomenon of living graves was folklore or a misunderstood geological event. There are scattered reports in 19th-century mining journals of sinkholes digging in near-perfect rectangles. But one account from a prospector in 1883 near the Gila River is more vivid. "We found a grave already half dug. Just waitin'. Inside was a rock shaped like a head. Wearin' my brother's hat. And he hadn't died yet. Not for another 3 days. You step back. The digging stops. The hole waits. You don't know how to explain it. But that grave wants you. Not metaphorically. Not spiritually. You. And still, you're tempted. Because the ground offers something. Peace. Maybe. Or answers. Or an ending. But then something flickers in the corner of your eye. You turn sharply, and see movement behind a low ridge. Not fast. Not hostile. Just purposeful. You follow. Boots crunching slowly. Warily. And climb the small rise. On the other side lies something you absolutely were not expecting. A workshop. Rusty tools hang from a half-collapsed awning. Tables splintered and stacked with bones, not randomly, but arranged, sorted by size, shape, and, most disturbing, age. Some bleached white, others still yellow, 1 or 2 still wet. Welcome to the domain of the bonesmith of Calico Ridge. Another ghost tale you heard once. Buried in the appendix of an old Western almanac. A man who fashioned jewelry, art, and tools out of bone. Said to be a recluse who spoke with the marrow. Whatever that means. Most claimed he was just a mad trapper who collected remains after Apache skirmishes. But no one ever explained the craftsmanship. Because these bones? They're shaped, polished, transformed into pendants, reins, flutes, even chess pieces. One piece sits under glass. A perfect revolver grip made from a human jaw. Beside it, a note. He asked to be useful after. You scan the workshop, and a strange nausea curls in your stomach. Not fear, not disgust, recognition. Because one piece of bone, smaller than the rest, has your initials carved into it. Not painted, not written, carved. It's a molar. Yours? You reach instinctively for your mouth. One tooth aches, deep, sharp, and the card in your pocket pulses again. You check it, still blank, still bleeding at the edges. You look up. A figure stands in the far corner of the workshop, cloaked in rags, face hidden beneath a welder's mask fashioned from 2 mirrored shards. You freeze. He lifts a hand, not in threat, in offering, holds out a pouch. You don't take it. He sets it down gently on the table, then turns away and begins humming. Low, tuneless, and somehow deeply familiar. You leave the workshop slowly, stepping around the molar. It pulses once, like a heartbeat in your palm. You don't remember picking it up, but it's yours now. And behind you, the bonesmith hums louder, melody rising, falling, like a lullaby made of rust. You walk. You don't know how long. Hours. Maybe days. The horizon doesn't change. It just shimmers, like it's unsure whether it's real. You pass cairns made of teeth, a fence made of vertebrae, a church bell half buried in the dirt, with a rope frayed not by weather, but by something pulling from below. And then, finally, a hill. 6 graves on it, neatly arranged, head to toe, side by side, in a perfect semicircle. No names, just blank markers. You pause. There's something familiar about the layout. You approach the first. The mound is clean, undisturbed. You lean in and press your hand to the stone, cold. Then the next, and the next. Each one, identical. Same stone, same dry soil, same chill. Until you reach the last one. It's open. A hole, 6 feet deep, lined in old wood. At the bottom, a body. You step back instinctively, but then you look closer. It's you. Not a skeleton, not a corpse. You, asleep, perfectly preserved. Your clothes, your hands, even your watch. Your chest rises and falls slowly. Breathing. Historians still argue whether the looping grave stories from the New Mexico territories were fiction or hallucination. But one record from a Confederate deserter in 1864 told of waking to see his own body being buried by himself. He claimed he never slept again. You reach down and touch the edge of the coffin. The wood is warm. Suddenly, something shifts beside you. Another man stands nearby. Wide hat, long coat. Familiar. It's the same man from earlier, the one on horseback. Rider without eyes. Only now, his face isn't blank. It's yours. Exactly yours. He tips his hat. You stumble back. He doesn't follow. Just stands, watching. Then one by one, the other 5 graves open. Each contains you, but not quite. A younger you, an older you, one with a broken arm you never had, one with a scar you don't remember earning, one missing both eyes. And then, from somewhere beyond the graves, a sound, metal, dragging. You turn. A cart is rolling down the hill by itself. Wooden wheels screeching. In the back, a heap of weapons. Broken revolvers, bent knives, holsters stained black, dozens of them, all familiar. You realize they're yours. Or versions of yours, across lifetimes, across choices you never made. The cart stops at your feet. There's a sign nailed to its side. Take one. You don't want to, but your hand moves on its own. You reach in, fingers grazing a Colt .45 with a cracked barrel. Cold, heavy, yours. You don't remember firing it, but your bones do. You holster it. The air tightens. Then, behind you, one of the versions of you opens its eyes and speaks. We're still not done. Then another. This time, make it count. And another. This time, don't flinch. The one without eyes doesn't speak, but you feel it thinking. You step back, shaken, and find yourself surrounded. 6 yous, each with a different ending, each waiting. You turn again to the rider without eyes. He's gone, and in his place stands the bonesmith. He nods. Not approval, not encouragement, just acknowledgement. Because maybe you are a record now. A file. And this grave, your grave, is just a page that hasn't finished turning. You walk away, revolver heavy, pocket heavier, heart uncertain, and from behind, the 6 graves close at once. No sound, no dust, just finality. For now, you walk without direction now. Not aimless, just surrendered. Like your boots are following muscle memory from a life you haven't lived yet. The land slopes downward. The air thickens again. And then, faint at first, you hear it. A bell. Soft, hollow, unceasing. You crest a hill and see it swaying in the wind. Not in a steeple, not in a tower, but mounted on a rusted iron pole at the center of a fenced grave. It's the smallest grave you've seen yet. Child-sized, no marker, just the bell above it, connected by a thin rope that disappears into the soil. And it's ringing, over and over. Ding, ding, ding. The kind of bell once used in the 1800s as a safety alert, in case someone was buried alive. Most were rigged with pulleys and ropes. If the person underground moved, the bell would ring. It was a fear rooted in real stories, shallow graves, bad doctors, and poor timing. But this bell? It's been ringing for a long time. You approach, expecting to find a prank. Maybe an animal pulling the rope from beneath. But no, the soil is undisturbed, perfect, smooth, except for the rope, which is taut, as if someone, something, is still holding it. You crouch, place your ear to the ground. Nothing at first. Then, scratching, not frantic, not desperate, methodical, rhythmic, like someone's writing a letter on a wooden lid. You step back, farther, farther. But the bell doesn't stop. Local lore speaks of one such bell, the Never Stopper, said to have been installed by a superstitious widow who buried her husband too soon. According to her diary, the bell never stopped ringing for 73 days. On the 74th day, she opened the grave. What she found was neither corpse nor husband. Just a note. I made it out. You should leave now too. Historians still argue whether she fabricated the entire story or if it was later embellished by pulp writers looking for a chilling tale. Either way, the bell remains a mystery. Much like this one, because now that you're listening, you realize it's not the only bell. In the distance, faint. On the wind, you hear others. Multiple. Dozens. All ringing. Unevenly. Like a conversation between graves. You look around, and suddenly realize the ground is full of them. Tiny brass bells. Some mounted. Some fallen. All moving. None connected to the living. And that's when it hits you. This entire field? It's not a graveyard. It's an alarm system. Not to warn of someone alive inside, but to signal when something leaves. You spin. Look for signs of fresh soil. Something emerging, crawling, walking, but the only thing you see is your own breath hanging unnaturally in the air. Like mist from a winter you don't remember. Then, something new. A sound, not of bells, but of metal clinking. You glance down. The Colt .45 in your holster is moving slightly. Not shaking, but vibrating. Like it's reacting. You draw it slowly. The chamber spins. On its own. Once. Twice. Then it stops. Points northeast. Again. Always northeast. The bells keep ringing. You start walking. Because what else do you do when the alarms are sounding? The names are carved. And the graves begin to feel familiar? You walk. Toward whatever's next. Toward whatever escaped. And you hope, maybe foolishly, that it doesn't look like you. You follow the bells. They fade, one by one, behind you. Each a tiny chime of warning swallowed by sand and distance. But your ears still ring with the memory. The kind of ringing that doesn't stop. The kind that gets inside you. The path grows tighter. Canyon walls rise on both sides. Closer than they should be. You're funneled now. Lead. That's when you spot it. An object in the dirt. Half buried. Dull silver glinting beneath dust. You kneel and dig it out. A revolver. A Colt. Yes, but not yours. This one is pristine. Too pristine. There's no wear on the grip. No carbon scarring in the barrel. Like it's never been fired. Except it has. You turn it over. Your name is etched along the side. Not engraved. Burned in. You check the cylinder. One bullet. One chamber. No trigger. You freeze. This is the gun from the stories. The one that aims itself. You've heard it mentioned in passing. Like a half-joke in the back corner of a saloon. A cursed Colt .45 passed from outlaw to outlaw. They said whoever held it couldn't miss. Said it fired on its own. Said it decided. You're holding it now. And as soon as you realize that, the ground beneath you shudders. Not violently. Just enough to suggest movement below. You stand, and so does your shadow. Only it doesn't move like yours. It lingers behind you, then steps ahead, a half second early, like it's leading. The Colt grows warm in your hand. Not hot, not burning, just alive. You holster it, and it settles, like a dog returning to its place. You continue down the canyon, and soon, you come to a flat clearing littered with bones. But these aren't random, they're posed, arms outstretched, fingers pointing, all in the same direction. You look down at one. Its jaw is dislocated, like it screamed too long. And in its teeth is a piece of parchment. You pull it free, unfold it. One line. He forgives nothing. The air behind you changes. You turn. Nothing. But the Colt's grip pulses. And from the corner of your eye, something moves. A flash of white. A coat? A cloak? A man? Gone. You step forward. And now, finally, you see it. A building. Half standing. Half sunken. Leaning against the canyon wall like a dying animal. Stone and wood. Roof missing. Door ajar. There's something carved above the entrance. You wipe away dust and read the words. Property of the Edge. You enter. Inside is dark. Silent. But laid across the floor are dozens of revolvers. Some broken. Some perfect. Some, still smoking. And one, mounted on the wall with care. Your Colt. The same one you're carrying. Same burn marks. Same etching. Same history. How can it be here and in your holster? You draw it again. Hold it up. Compare. Identical. You look down. And something changes. You're not alone. A mirror on the opposite wall reflects a man behind you. You spin. Nothing. You look again. The mirror shows him still. And he's holding a gun to your back. The Colt fires. You don't pull the trigger. But it fires. The mirror shatters. Silence. You're still standing. Alone. You look at your reflection in the shards. You're not the same. Your eyes are older. And your shadow is gone. You walk out of the building. The Colt cools in your hand. And all around you, the bones that pointed before? They now point up. Toward the canyon ridge. Toward whatever waits at the edge of the map. You climb. Because you have no other direction left. The canyon ridge towers ahead. Jagged like a torn page. Your boots scrape rock that's too brittle. Too worn. Like thousands of others climbed here before. None of whom came back down. Each step feels like you're trespassing on a version of yourself that didn't make it. And then you reach it. The edge. Not just of the canyon, but of everything. Because beyond this ridge, the world simply stops. No sky. No stars. No horizon. Just a wall of shadow that shimmers like heat on pavement. You lean forward, and it ripples, reacts to your presence. A pulse of static runs along your skin. And the Colt in your holster hums faintly. Like it knows what comes next. Welcome to the cemetery at the edge of the map. It's not a metaphor. It's not a frontier poet's exaggeration. It's real. Historians still argue whether this place ever existed or if it's a cartographic myth. An anomaly that appeared and disappeared on 19th century expedition maps like a printing error that no one could fix. Some believed it was a cursed cartographer's joke. Others a mirage, or a psychological phenomenon caused by dehydration. But there's one map, dated 1872, authored by a French explorer named Lamoureux, that included a single label in the far southeast corner of New Mexico. Cimetière aux âmes refusées, Cemetery of the Refused Souls. Every other detail, rivers, trails, towns, is precise. Only this place is surrounded by blank space. No terrain, no scale, just a fading boundary like the ink itself refused to hold onto the idea. You step closer. The edge hums louder, like the space beyond is trying to speak but has no mouth. And on the ground at your feet, a half-buried plaque. You have now gone too far. You stare, not in fear, exactly, but in the sharp clarity that comes when you realize the trail is done. There's nothing left to explain. The graves here are different. Not mounds, not crosses, just outlines. Shadows burned into the rock. Some shaped like bodies, others like weapons. One, a chair, empty, with two handprints charred into the armrests. You kneel at one of the shadows and touch the stone. It's cold, but your fingertip comes away blackened. Char. You lean closer. There's writing, barely visible. I chose not to finish. And suddenly, you understand. This place isn't a burial ground. It's a refusal. Every outline here belongs to someone who stepped too far, saw the pattern, the spiral, the ledger, and refused to play their role. They didn't die. They didn't live. They opted out. And the land remembers them not with bones, but with absence. Negative space. Like an author erasing characters mid-sentence. You back away slowly. But the Colt is heavy in your hand again. You glance down at it. The chamber is spinning, on its own. Once. Twice. It stops. And now there's a seventh bullet inside. Where did it come from? You look around. The air begins to shimmer. The edge of the world leans toward you. And behind you, footsteps. Not running. Not rushing. Marching. You turn. A procession is coming up the ridge. Dozens of figures. Cowboys. Riders. Your reflections. And at the front, the tallyman. Ledger in hand. He stops 10 feet from you. Opens the book. Reads a name aloud. Yours. Then he nods, not in command, but in recognition. You've reached the final line of the page. Your options? Step forward. Or turn and fire. You raise the Colt. It's warm. It wants to fire. But this time, you pull the trigger yourself. The sound echoes, not like a shot, but like a page turning. The procession stops. The edge of the world ripples. The shadow graves flicker. And your Colt? Now empty. You look down. The chamber has spun again. And this time, your name is etched into the bullet casings. Every one of them. You holster it slowly. Turn back toward the edge. And for the first time, it opens. The edge yawns open like a mouth remembering how to speak. Not a doorway. Not a tunnel. Just absence. Shaped like invitation. The space beyond it is colorless. Not black. Not gray. Just void. A blank between chapters. You hesitate. But something tugs at your ankle. Not a hand. Not a force. A sensation. Like memory itself trying to pull you back. To remind you that there were still pages left. You shake it off. Because now you understand. You've seen too much to go back. The graveyard behind you is no longer behind. It's inside you now. In the way you step. In the way your heartbeat feels like a countdown. In the way your shadow no longer matches your shape. You walk into the void. And find yourself somewhere else. A town. Or the echo of one. It looks like the Wild West should. Crooked saloons. Dusty roads. Lanterns hanging from wooden beams. But everything is off. The buildings shimmer faintly. Like mirages barely clinging to solidity. The signs are in languages you don't speak. Some have no letters at all. Just symbols burned into the wood, spirals. Bones. Hourglasses turned sideways. The sky isn't sky. It's parchment. And it's writing itself. You squint up and see script forming in the clouds. Sentences that curl. Vanish. And rewrite. Words like, he returned again. This time, he aimed first. This time, he didn't blink. You walk the street. Empty. No people. But every window you pass? Your reflection. Not just now you. Versions of you. In different codes. Different weapons. Some missing limbs. Some grinning. One clearly dead. They all watch you pass. And you realize. This is where the unfinished cowboys go. The ones too strange for history. Too inconvenient for the legend. Too aware to rot. The graveyard of the unwritten. In the center of town. You find a building marked only with a skull and an ink quill. Inside. A long desk. Papers stacked high. A single lamp burning with blue fire. And behind it, a woman. Eyes glowing faintly. Fingers stained with ink. She looks up. And smiles like she's been waiting decades. You're late, she says. Not unkindly. You open your mouth to speak. But she gestures for silence. Holds up a page. It's blank, except for your name at the top. Beneath it. Cause of death, unfiled. She slides it toward you. Then sets a revolver beside it. Not yours. But you recognize it. It's the one the first version of you carried. The one who disappeared near Devil's Elbow. Sheriff Harland. Or whatever part of him you've always been carrying. She hands you a pen. You can finish it, she says. Or leave it blank forever. But the town needs to know. Historians still argue whether this writer's town ever existed. Or if it's a metaphor for guilt. Memory. Or unfinished business. A dream for drifters. A nightmare for men too haunted to rest. But you know better. You take the pen. And for the first time since you entered this graveyard, you write. Not an ending. Just one sentence. He stepped into the story willingly. The woman nods. The revolver vanishes. The paper curls and flies upward, joining the script in the sky. And the door behind you creaks open. Back to the spiral. Back to the graves. But now? They're looking at you for answers. You step out of the writer's town. Not through a gate. Not over a threshold. Just through. Like waking from a dream into another one. Deeper. Darker. And somehow more real. The spiral awaits. Only this time. It's aware of you. The mounds breathe. The markers twitch. And the silence, oh. That crushing, knowing silence. Leans in like a preacher before confession. But you're not a visitor anymore. You belong to this place now. The sky above is the same parchment as before. But now it writes slower, deliberate strokes. Like it's waiting for your choices before continuing the sentence. You walk. The graves part slightly as you move between them. Respectful now. Or maybe cautious. Even the writers without eyes. perched stoically on distant ridges. Tilt their heads as you pass. They remember you. Or one of you. Maybe all of you. You reach the base of a gnarled black tree, roots wrapped around dozens of pocket watches. Each one ticking a different time. Some tick backward, some flicker. One is frozen at the exact second you last died, though you never knew it until now. At the base of the tree, a box. Old, locked, familiar. Your name carved into the lid. You kneel, fingers trembling slightly as you lift the latch. Unlocked, of course. Always was. Inside? 6 items. A revolver with no barrel. A sheriff's badge melted into a heart. A bone coin with your tooth still embedded. A torn playing card, Jack of Spades. Split down the center. A mirror shard, cracked and bleeding faint light. A key with no door. This is your kit, your memory, your proof. You take them one by one, tucking each into a different pocket. As you do, the spiral groans around you, not in pain, but in preparation, because the story is almost told, but not finished. You continue down the path as the landscape changes. No more wooden markers, no more crows, just faces, hundreds of them, half buried in the dirt, carved in stone, frozen in agony, mouths open, eyes wide. You don't recognize most of them, but some? You do. The bartender who gave you directions once in a town that didn't exist. The bounty hunter you watched bleed out in a canyon after refusing a name. The woman with the ink-stained fingers who handed you the paper and told you to write. And finally, you, etched into the final stone at the spiral's center. Mouth closed, eyes calm, no scream, no fight, just quiet understanding. Beneath your face is one line. This one wrote it down. And under that? An open grave. You step to its edge. Peer in. And this time, no mirror. Just dirt. Still. Waiting. Then a voice, gentle. Rasping. Not unkind. Curls up from below. One more page. Then you rest. You look up. The writers stand at the edges of the spiral now. Watching. The bonesmith leans against his bench. Polishing a coin. The tallyman flips a blank page in his ledger. Pencil poised. The bells are quiet. For now. You kneel. Place the final bone in the grave, your own molar. Still warm. The earth accepts it, slowly begins to cover itself. Even without your help. You don't need to lie in it. You filed what needed filing. And for the first time, the spiral stops spinning. The spiral doesn't unwind, it exhales. A long, slow breath held for over a century. The air shifts, softer now, less like warning, more like relief. The land recognizes you, not as an intruder or loose end, but as something it can finally shelve. You rise from the grave's edge, lighter, not just in body, but in weight of story. The colt on your hip no longer hums. It simply rests. You glance down one last time at your marker. No headstone. No date. Just that one carved line. This one wrote it down. You leave it behind. As you walk out of the spiral, things begin to unmake themselves. The twisted grave markers fold into the dirt. The white tree shrinks into ash. The writers remain, but now they bow their heads as you pass. A silent salute, from one figure lost in time to another who chose to step out. Above you, the parchment sky begins to fade. Not in color, but in ink. The sentences drift apart like dust on the wind. Their job complete. You find the gate again. That crooked, rusted thing that never belonged to any fence. It's still open, waiting. You step through, and you're back. Somewhere familiar, but quieter. The dust feels different, less like memory, more like earth. In the distance, a new sign rises from the sand. Clean wood, fresh nails, letters carved with care. Here lies the ones WHO knew too much, and wrote it anyway. A bench sits nearby. You sit. And now? You watch. Because this isn't your story anymore. It's theirs. The next traveler. The next cowboy. The next one with a name that's almost yours. And when they come, you'll nod. Not speak. Just nod. Because you'll know. They're about to be counted. 2. The wind is soft now. It swirls across the open desert like a whispered song, tugging gently at the dust that never quite settles. The graves have quieted. The bells have stopped. The spiral sleeps again. For a while, you lean back on the bench, eyes half-lidded, listening to nothing and everything. A crow lands nearby, doesn't caw, just perches, watching, waiting, as they always do. And far in the distance, a shimmer on the horizon, heat, mirage, or memory. You can't tell anymore. You close your eyes and let the hum of silence hold you. The colt on your hip feels weightless now, like it's become a story of its own, one someone else will tell, or find, or bury again. There's comfort here, not peace, exactly, but understanding, that all stories want is to be finished. Not cleanly, not perfectly, just honestly. And that's what you did. The spiral will wake again, of course. Maybe tomorrow, maybe in another 100 years. But when it does, it won't spin quite the same. Because you left your mark. You filed your page. And somewhere, in the dark folds of time, your grave remains open, just in case. But for now, sleep. You've earned that much.